Handshake proof.
Fun yet?
Yeah, I definitely have this. I didn't know what to expect, but this has been amazing. Just meeting all y'all and just the people, everybody's so nice.
Everybody ready? We're taking over now. Okay.
Now that he ready, everybody ready?
Everybody ready? Get on down and start cooking.
Right, you want to come over here? Yeah, Jeff, right, yeah. All right, good deal. All right, good afternoon. I'm Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons, and to my right is my client and friend, Rhonda Grayson, and to my left is my client and friend, Jeff Kennedy, who are the leaders of the Muskogee Creek Freeman Indian Band, who are all Black Creeks or Creek Freeman descendants. We're here today to announce a historic motions that were filed yesterday with the Muskogee Creek Nation Supreme Court. You know, in a time that we're living in now where voting rights are being hurt throughout this nation, it's making it harder for people to vote, particularly people, Black folks, Creeks, people of African descent. The same thing is happening within the Creek Nation as we speak. We know that back almost 8 months ago, we won a historic victory, 5-0, where the Creek Nation Supreme Court said that the Treaty of 1866, specifically Article 2, was the supreme law of the land. And the Treaty of 1866 gave all Creeks of African descent the same rights of any other Creek, including the right to vote. Yet, because of Chief Hill's obstruction, Creeks of African descent have not been able to enroll. And as of just of today, there are an estimated 4,000 Creeks Freeman descendants who have submitted their applications, who are in fact eligible for citizenship, and yet they've been denied citizenship and they've been denied the right to vote. On May 30th, the Muskogee Creek Nation will have an election to amend their constitution, and yet Creeks of African descent are not allowed to vote. And we're not talking about a small number. I know I said it was 4,000 pending applications, but the United States government just recently in a GAO report validated what we've been saying, that there are tens of thousands of Creeks of African descent who are eligible for citizenship. According to the federal government, they estimate 47,000 to 117,000 Black Creek Indians who are eligible for citizenship. And yet each one of those individual citizens of Creeks of African descent are still being discriminated against. So yesterday we filed 2 motions with the Supreme Court. First, we asked that the court hold the Citizenship Board and Chief Hill in contempt for willfully disobeying their court order. Again, it was a 5-0 decision, and they have willfully disobeyed that order in keeping Rhonda and Jeff and all these other Creeks of African descent from having their citizenship. Secondly, and we really thought about this a long time before we filed the second motion, but we have asked the Muskogee Creek Nation Supreme Court to postpone all elections within the Creek Nation until they start enrolling Creeks of African descent. We did not want to do that. They have forced us to make this filing. They have forced us to go to the court and ask for this relief. We asked the court, if you will not stop the election, at least allow Creeks of African descent who've put in the application to have a provisional vote. And this is something that happened in the Cherokee Nation about 10 or 15 years ago, so there's precedent for it. Why did we have to file this motion trying to stop this election? Because There was an election last year in September that the Creeks of African descent were not allowed to participate in. So this would be the second disenfranchisement. And once election happens, there's nothing that can be done. It's error. It's nothing that can be done to fix it. Now let's call this what it is. And I hate to say this. This is nothing but anti-black racism. We're standing here as full Creeks, and yet we're denied just because of how we look. And I cannot lie and tell you or not express that it hurts. We are getting calls every day from Creeks of African descent saying, why? Why do they hate us so much? We're just as Creek as them. We know who our nation is. We know what the contribution of our people were. We know that our people spoke the language. We know our people walked the Trail of Tears just like other Creeks. We know that some of our people were enslaved and built up the Creek Nation and then rebuilt it after the Civil War. We know that without Creeks of African descent, there may not even be a Creek Nation today. And that's why we will not give up this fight, no matter how hurt we are, how tired we are. We will not give up this fight because we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. But this case is also not just an assault on black Creeks, but it's an assault on black people throughout this country. It's an assault on our dignity as black people, that a government can discriminate openly based upon race, and it's okay. And as a lawyer, I'm concerned because the Creek Nation has shown itself to be not a nation of laws, but a nation of men. Because a nation of laws will follow the law. They're disobeying their own court system. Not only just the federal courts, the federal law, the federal treaty, they're disobeying their own court system. That puts all tribal sovereignty in jeopardy. Because as we all, as Creek citizens and as Native people, want treaties to be upheld and followed, if our own nation won't uphold it and follow it, why would the United States do it? So this is even bigger than anti-black discrimination. This is about the rule of law. This is about, does our Supreme Court, will you listen to our Supreme Court and do as they have ordered you to do? Also, if you take a look at Chief David Hill's executive order that he filed in August, it specifically goes against the Treaty of 1866. The treaty specifically states that Creeks of African descent will be treated equally as any other Creek. Yet Chief Hill's executive order specifically says when you get Creeks of African descent, when you get their application, treat it differently. That's what it actually says. He's in violation of the law on its face. There is no room for second-class citizenship in this country and in the nation, the Muscogee Creek Nation. So we're looking forward to the court taking our motions, reviewing them quickly, and responding in the only way we believe it can be responded, by ordering our citizenship applications to be processed and making sure we can vote. And if we cannot get the relief, as we stated in our documents, within the court because of the condensed deadline, we will be forced, and we do not want to do this, we will be forced to go to federal court. That is not our desire. We want to work this out within our own nation. We want our own nation's Supreme Court to be adhered to. We don't want to have to bring in the federal courts. We don't think that should be necessary. But if we cannot get the relief, we cannot continue to allow second-class citizenship to continue. Last thing I want to say, in 1866, when the Treaty of 1866 was being negotiated, there were leaders within the Creek Nation that promised that they were going to do right by Creeks of African descent. They signed that document. That is the document that we all live under as Creek citizens. That is the document that McGirt decision is based upon. That document is good law. And just as the promises of McGirt are being adhered to, the promise of citizenship and equal justice underneath the law for Creeks of African descent must be adhered to. Rhonda, you want to? I'll take just a few questions.
I know that the court ordered progress reports starting in December from the Creek Nation. Have you all gotten any besides the one on December 5th that we've seen?
No, we have not. We received, it was one progress report, like you said, on December 5th, and we were waiting for that. You know, obviously, that's been 3 months. Today is March 10th, and nothing has occurred. And in those progress reports, it really was nothing had occurred anyway. And our position is you don't need progress reports because the order specifically says that Rhonda and Jeff and all other Creek Freeman descendants are citizens by law. So we've been forced to file this motion. Yes.
In that status report, the Citizenship Board mentioned that their hands are more or less tied until the National Council actually takes action. To date, they haven't, and I noticed you didn't name check them among the folks who you're filing this contempt claim against. Have you even had conversations with the National Council about, hey, what's the holdup on your end?
Yeah. No, we haven't. That's not. It wouldn't be appropriate. Our position is the Citizenship Board doesn't have to do anything but follow the order of the Mississippi Supreme Court. The court has spoken. The court said you need to do this. They are willfully and voluntarily listening to what Chief David Hill is telling them to do. So this is a constitutional issue within the Creek Nation. And that's what we're saying. Does the rule of law apply, or does the rule of David Hill apply? Yes, sir.
Have you established like a hard deadline for filing at the federal level? Is there a date past which you guys are going to pull the trigger on federal filings?
Well, I wouldn't discuss that here. I would just say that we're very aware of the different filing deadlines. We know that absentee ballots have already been, you had a deadline on February 13th. We know there's some other deadlines coming up. And we obviously want to give the court, if we had to go to federal court, we want to give them the opportunity to be able to rule. Again, I want to just reiterate, that is not our desire. We don't think that's necessary. We believe that this actually hurts, everything that's happening now hurts tribal sovereignty. We think we have real enemies of tribal sovereignty in this state and in this nation. And they can point to this issue right here and say, you see, they don't even believe in the treaties. And so we don't want to open that Pandora's box. And as some people know, we've been reaching out to Chief Hill on many occasions. We've sent him many letters. We've asked to meet with him. And he's refused every opportunity to sit down and say, how can we work this out? Look at what the Cherokee Nation is doing. The Cherokee Nation is doing the exact opposite of what the Creek Nation is doing. Look how stronger the Cherokee Nation is. Look at what it's doing for the Cherokee Nation. We want the same within the Creek Nation. So to answer your question, we do not have a deadline that I'm ready to talk about today.
Mario, is there any ideal case for if the contempt request could be approved by the Supreme Court that you don't have to do that postponement of an election? What's kind of in your mind the ideal in terms of them holding Chief David Hill in contempt and not having to move forward with more serious measures?
I mean, the ideal is that the court reasserts that they are the final arbiter, a final decision on what the law is, and they have stated, hey, you must adhere to our order, and they just invalidate and make it clear that David Hill's order, Chief Hill's order is illegal. It's illegal, it's unlawful, it's unnecessary. So that's what we hope to hear from the court. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Clear, concise.